What is going on, guys? And welcome to a late night stream with Tigo. And this is Talking Jets with Tigo. And I just kind of wanted to do, like I said, a late night stream. Just have an opportunity to kind of just talk about the Jets and my thoughts on the Jets and just there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and we got a game tomorrow, and I'm just bored, and I need the watch hours, and I got to get better at doing this live thing. And so until we get some people in here, until we get some people talking and hanging out and doing all of that stuff, let's just hop right into the video and into the live stream. And the main focus for this live stream, until we can get some viewers in here and get some chat going on and all of that stuff, I really wanted to talk about Joe Douglas and how successful and how well he has been drafting, not just in the top parts of the draft, which are a little bit easier to draft, right? Your first and second round players are a little bit easier to get right because those guys just are NFL talent, and it comes down to your coaching staff most of the time. But also in the later rounds, your third round picks, your fourth round picks, your fifth round picks, your sixth round picks, and talking about how in the last 2 years, we've added so many contributors to this football team and so many high level players to this football team at every part of the draft. Let's start by saying hello to Veterans Live Show. Thank you for stopping by, and you're damn right. Let's go Jets. I haven't seen you on the channel commenting or a part of the live stream before, so if you're new, would really and greatly appreciate it if you hung around, left a like, dropped a sub, all of those things to anybody who jumps in to the channel. But I wanted to talk about specifically, right, last year's draft, the 2021 draft, which I think is the first real draft that we can look at with thank you very much for being subscribed to Veterans Live Show. But last year, the 2021 draft, I think, is the first draft that we can really look at for Joe Douglas and say this is 100% on him. Because the 2020 draft, while I think we can all agree hasn't gone well for the Jets, that's a different situation because we don't know how involved the Adam Gase of the whole situation was, right? Back then, the whole scheme and the whole structure of the New York Jets football team, top down, was that the head coach and the general manager were on the same level. And we don't know how much of those picks can be credited to Adam Gase wanting a guy or liking a guy over Joe Douglas, and Joe Douglas trying to do right by his head coach and building a team full of players that he wanted. So while I'll give a semi-pass to the 2020 draft class, which I don't think really was that bad, just unfortunate the way that it ended up, right? Mekhi Becton really was showing us that he was going to be a boom, like a superstar in this league, and to get sidelined by 2 injuries in back-to-back years, no one can really predict that. This coaching staff hasn't been able to get Denzel Mims involved yet, and I don't think that should be a slight on Joe Douglas and his ability. I think we all believe in Denzel Mims. I know that a lot of Jets fans aren't fans of his, but I am. I like Ashton Davis, and I believe in Ashton Davis and what he might be able to bring for this team moving down the line. Jabari Zuniga, Lamichael Pirine, James Morgan, Cameron Clark are all kind of whatever picks. Jabari Zuniga was a player that I had a lot of hope in. Like, I believed in his upside, and just hasn't panned out, unfortunately. Same thing for Lamichael Pirine. He's one of those guys where I believed in, and I hoped that we could have seen something from him. Cameron Clark, with the injuries, was actually looking relatively good as a 4th-round tackle. And then the last 2 picks of the 2020 draft, Bryce Hall and Braden Mann, are still both on the team, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Bryce Hall. But to be able to say that you got a lot of good football from Bryce Hall as a 5th-round pick is something that you can't just ignore, right? It's something you have to look at, and it's something that you have to respect. Guys who are watching, let me know about the volume. I want to make sure I've been adjusting the volume for the videos, and I want to make sure that I'm not too loud and I'm not like busting and exploding your eardrums, but I also want to make sure that I'm not too soft either. So let me know how the audio and everything is working there. But like I said, with Joe Douglas, I think you have to start when you're looking and evaluating this general manager and what he's been able to do. It starts in 2021 because that's when he was able to pick. Thank you, Sergeant Mike, for letting me know. And welcome to the stream. 2021 is the first year where we can actually look at Joe Douglas and the picks that he's making, because one, he is the sole person deciding on these players. He's taking the input from the coaching staff and everything like that, but the whole responsibility falls on him, and he's added his coaching staff. And so I really, really like what we're doing there. And so if we're looking at starting in year 2 with the guys that he drafted in year 2, which, by the way, all but one of those guys is still on this roster, and the only one that's not on this roster is someone that we all wish we could have kept because we had high hopes for. So let's kind of go over the 2021 draft. But real quick, Sergeant Mike, my only problem with Joe D, as he's been hitting on almost every pick, but this year trading up for JJ cost us a lot of depth. I wanted to trade down with 10. Sergeant Mike, while I understand what you're saying while I understand where you're coming from and the idea behind it, trading back from 10, like having at some point in time for a franchise, you have to stop accumulating draft picks. Right? You have to stop hoarding draft picks, and you have to start using the capital and the things that you've built to get better in big ways, right? Because 4th round picks, 5th round picks, 6th round picks, unless you're really Joe Douglas and with the success that he's had, those guys are going to tend to be your backups and your depth players. And that's exactly what you said, right? It costs us a lot of depth, but like Garrett Wilson is way, way better than the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round safety or linebacker that you would have drafted. And like Garrett Wilson is so much more far and away superior as a net positive than what those 3rd, 4th, and 5th round linebackers or safeties would be for this team. I think the same thing, and I think the biggest example that people use is trading up for Jermaine Johnson and trading up for Bryce Hall. I look at them in the same way, and I'll get to those guys because, like I said, I've got notes and stuff. I really went to try to prepare for this stream, but I think those guys are both massive net positives for this team in a big way, where the guys that you would have gotten, let's say at the picks that we would have gotten, while they might have been great and contributors for this team, and we'll see that as time goes on. If you look at like the Elijah Vera Tucker pick, right? I think all of the picks that we've traded, that we traded away to go up to get Elijah Vera Tucker, are out of the league or like cut from Minnesota and on practice squads, where Elijah Vera Tucker right now is like a top 10 guard in the NFL. But let's hop right into it. Let's talk about it and all of that stuff right now. So let's start with, I think the first pick that he made, who was truly him, which was the 2nd overall pick, was picking Zach Wilson. Now, I didn't have a channel during that draft, but I had a lot of friends, and they will attest to this. I had Zach Wilson graded as my number 1 quarterback that year. I had him above Trevor Lawrence, and I really, really liked Zach. I still really, really like Zach, and I think that he absolutely knocked it out of the park with that pick. While last year he wasn't the best, like if we're just being objective with it, the team around him didn't really give him a lot of opportunity. When you look at how injured we were in the running back rooms and the wide receiver rooms, and having to play Jeff Smith, and Keelan Cole had the most snaps of any wide receiver last year. That just doesn't translate to good quarterback play at any level. So That's a big deal to have that situation go on. But if we're looking at Zach and the positives, especially coming into this year with a much improved team, Zach Wilson has the potential of having or has the potential of being like a top 10, top 15 quarterback in this league, probably closer to a top 10. But right now, like if you were to measure arm strength in this league, Zach Wilson very easily has a top 5 NFL arm in terms of arm strength. Like, in reality, I think there are maybe 2 arms that are stronger than his in the NFL, and I'm giving that to Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, because I think he has a bigger arm than Aaron Rodgers, and that's not because I think Aaron Rodgers had a huge arm and he's just getting old, so he's just losing some velocity, which is saying something, because when Aaron Rodgers loses some velocity, it's still a cannon, right? But like, he has a top 5, top 3 NFL arm strength. It's just crazy when you look at that. Going on to his other first-round pick, Elijah Vera Tucker, where he traded up to go get Elijah Vera Tucker. Like, I mentioned it earlier with the fact that Elijah Vera Tucker right now is playing out of this mind good. Elijah Vera Tucker is playing as a top 10 NFL guard. According to PFF, he is ranked 8th amongst all NFL guards. That's not rookies. That's not year 2. That's not anything. And Elijah Vera Tucker is blowing it out of the park. And Elijah Vera Tucker might truthfully and honestly be right now the best player we have on offense. Like, at his position. It's just, he is so good. So talk about like hitting a draft pick or hitting like a pick out of the water. He absolutely is just doing great things for this football team. Sergeant Mike, the only thing is when you trade up, you have to hit it out of the park. AVT was a home run, but JJ has not yet made an impact. And that trade made us trade 38 for 36, so it was a double whammy. Look, absolutely. I totally get what you're saying, Sergeant Mike. But Jermaine Johnson also hasn't been given the opportunity to hit it out of the park, and it's something that I'll mention when I go to talk about this last year's draft. Jermaine Johnson, I had him graded as the best edge rusher coming out of the class. When you look at all of the potential and all of the stuff that he's going to need, and edge rushers, if you look at them, most edge rushers don't come into the league and are as disruptive as Myles Garrett and like those types of players. They don't come into the league blowing it up. On average, edge rushers take a year or 2 to really acclimate themselves to NFL tackles and to acclimate themselves with the fact that they have to ramp up the speed of their pass rush, because in college, quarterbacks tend to hold the ball longer, and the level of competition that you're facing isn't as good. Now, the good thing is that we saw Jermaine Johnson in college face an NFL tackle in Ike Ekwonu, and he did really well when he matched up against him. But also at the Senior Bowl, when he matched up against a bunch of guys that got drafted. A guy that's on our team that is playing exceptionally well, and he matched up against. So my thing is right now with Jermaine Johnson, you can't blame Joe Douglas for it. And again, time will tell with those draft picks. But the other thing is like that I look at it when it comes to trading up is that you can't fill every hole in 1 year. And what I believe Jermaine Johnson will become is a bigger net positive in the same kind of sense where I think like those 3rd, 4th, and 5th round safeties and linebackers, which is probably what you wanted. Like, Sergeant Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but those picks that we used to move up were probably picks that you wanted to target what? Linebackers and safeties with. You probably wanted us to take 2 linebackers. I wanted us to take 2 linebackers and a free safety. And my thing with that is, like I said, you can't fill every hole in 1 year. And right now, the track record is saying that trading up is when Joe Douglas trades up for a player, that player ultimately ends up being a net positive. Now, while we don't have a massive time like scale to look at to say, oh yeah, that's 100% true, over the years. It's only been 2 years. And really, it's only been 1 year and then 3 games. So we can't really talk about Jermaine Johnson, whether or not he is a net positive. This is a lot of speculation and me going off of my evaluation of what I had from him coming out of college. Like I said, I had him ranked as my number 1 edge. Like, it flopped around a lot. Him and Aiden Hutchinson really flopped around a lot. And then George Karlaftis also came into that conversation a couple of times, quite a bit. But when it came down to the end of the draft at like what we were going to do, I had Jermaine Johnson at the edge position as my number 1 edge in the class, just because of the fact that he is an elite run blocker, and he has the pass rush set, but with some good coaching, he can really take that next step, in my opinion. But that's my thoughts on the whole JJ trading up. And then you do get the double whammy of, okay, because you traded away 36, now we have to trade up from 38 to go get Bryce Hall. And I get that. But again, and we'll talk about Bryce Hall when I get to next year, it's looking like it's a good pick. We're just not utilizing him as much as we should. But moving on and going back to the 2021 draft, the next player that's taken is Elijah Moore. And I think every New York Jet fan can agree that Elijah Moore, going into this year, everybody had high hopes for Elijah Moore. He hasn't been necessarily a super, let's say, productive member of this football team as of yet. But he also hasn't been crazy unproductive either. In the 3 games that he's played, he's averaged 46.3 yards per game, which isn't at the level that we want him to be. We want him closer to that, obviously, like 80 or 90. But when you take into consideration the amount of snaps and balls and thing that Garrett Wilson is getting, and how much attention he's getting, it's hard to spread the ball evenly. The same thing kind of goes for Corey Davis, right? Corey Davis, whether or not you like it or agree with it or dislike it and disagree with it, he is getting a lot of attention in the passing game. And I agree with it. And he's averaging, 62 yards per game, and Garrett Wilson is as well. But Elijah Moore isn't getting targets and isn't getting the receptions that he's getting is because of Joe Flacco. Because how many times do we watch the game back and you go to the NFL Plus and the All 22 and the everything from those things, and you see, hey, Elijah Moore is wide open in the flat, or Elijah Moore is wide open with the post or with the cutback route or with the whatever it is, and he's just, Joe Flacco is not able to get the ball to him quickly enough because his process to break down a defense and go through his reads and taking his 3-step drop is just way too freaking long. And so when you take all of that into consideration, when you take that different stuff that's going on into consideration, I don't fault Elijah Moore. We all expect that when Zach gets back, the chemistry that we saw from Zach Wilson and Elijah Moore last year is only going to pick up where it left off. They were really, really close going into this year. And then you hope that he can continue the same level of chemistry with Garrett Wilson, because Garrett Wilson has really, really done well. And we'll talk more about Garrett Wilson when we get to the 2022 NFL draft. Let's read some more of your comments. Sergeant Mike, my problem also with JJ and Michael Clemens is that they were 24-year-old defensive linemen going against maybe 20-year-old offensive linemen at 24 and 25. You are basically at full strength. So now that they go up against 30-year-old offensive linemen. Look, you're absolutely right. It was the biggest knock and the biggest reason why I went back and forth with Jermaine Johnson being my number 1 edge, and why I struggled with that and making that and saying that confidently was because of the fact that he was an older edge. That being said, we're seeing edge rushers be productive later into their careers, and the good thing is by the time Jermaine Johnson is going to be getting his first contract, he will be 30 years old, and he's not really going to have the ability to ask for a massive contract. Now, I know that's like looking way, way later into the future, but it's just one of those things where edge rushers and pass rushers are looking and starting. Same thing goes with offensive linemen. Because of modern medicine, they're able to stay healthy longer, and they're able to stay productive and contribute longer. So while, yes, drafting a guy at 22 years old, like we did with Zach, especially at a position like edge, is going to benefit you long term. Now you're looking at a guy like, it's the give and takes. Like, there's no real argument for this. Like, you're absolutely right. You always want to draft the younger guys, but I just think that Jermaine's, with Michael Clemens, I'll give it to you, but he was like a 4th or a 5th round pick, so it doesn't really, like, you're getting depth at 4th or the 5th round. While I love Michael Clemens being on this team, picking another edge is where maybe I have an issue with it, especially because, like, now you look at it like Bryce Huff isn't being activated because we drafted Michael Clemens, and so you kind of get like, did we really need to get another edge, or maybe would an interior defensive lineman been a better pick there? Would maybe a linebacker be a better pick there in that situation? Maybe even a safety been a better pick there. But I love Michael Clemens being on this team, and hindsight's always 20/20, right? I believed in Solomon Thomas going into this year. I thought that he was going to be able to turn it around and have a relatively successful revitalization in his career. I thought he was going to play right next to Quinnen Williams at a high level. And boy, was I wrong. Not only was I wrong in the fact of saying, like, you know what, I thought Solomon Thomas was going to be Quinnen Williams' partner in crime, but I was also wrong on my Sheldon Rankins take. While I was totally on board with cutting Nathan Shepard, I thought, maybe if Rankins plays with a better defensive line, we might be able to see him live up to that first round hype that he did. And he absolutely not living up to the first round hype, right? I think it was the 12th overall pick. Yeah, he was the 12th overall selection. He hasn't played well for a 12th overall selected player. Neither is Solomon Thomas. I'm pretty sure Solomon Thomas was taken 3rd overall. That being said, he's played really well within this defensive line and the rotation that we're doing, and that's been honestly surprising. But you're right. Drafting a 22-year-old kid is always going to benefit you in the long term, especially when you're looking at how they're performing. But at the end of the day, I don't care about your age. I care how you play in the NFL, and I think JJ was the most pro-ready edge rusher coming out of the class, and at the draft, we all expected JFM to bump inside and play interior a lot more than he is now. And I think we all expected JJ to really fill in that slot. I think we all wanted our 4 pass rushers to be Lawson, Williams, JFM, and JJ. And so I'm going to hold off on being able to talk about whether or not JJ is going to be successful or anything like that until I see more reps from him. Once he hits that 40-60 reps, that's what I want to see going in. Let's say hello to Jets Mess and Dark Soldier with the crew. Thank you for stopping by, guys, and leaving the likes. I know that you guys always do that, and it's greatly appreciated. Sergeant Mike keeping it going, at least for the Giants. Kayvon is only 21, so he will get a lot stronger, but Bryce was my favorite pick. I don't like that MC is the current starter. Interesting, because while I understand what you're saying with like Bryce is unstoppable. Like, he will be. My exact notes for Bryce Hall, and what I put here is, nope, this is my Max Mitchell video. My exact notes for Bryce is an elite running back in waiting, and just waiting to explode onto the scene. I don't know if it's play calling or this offensive line, but watch out, because when Bryce hits the scene, he's going to be insane. But MC not being the starter, that's interesting. I think Michael Carter provides a little bit more right now because he's just more familiar with the scheme. You can see that he's more involved in the passing game, and Jets Mess makes a good point. Bryce has had a little bit of like concentration lapses, and that might just be because, he's a rookie. He's getting used to the NFL game, and I'm totally cool with that. And that totally makes some sense when you're talking about it. And we have missed a couple of touchdowns, but I'll defend Bryce Hall on this one just a little bit, because part of that is also Joe Flacco's horrible throwing and accuracy of the football. There was one in the Cincinnati game where Bryce is wide open and in stride, and if Joe Flacco, who isn't under pressure, can just hit his guy, that's a touchdown that he drops. And so we are seeing some concentration drops there, but ultimately I want to have Bryce earn the spot. It's the same thing with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson wasn't being shown in this offensive scheme week 1, and he proved Mike LaFleur wrong. Just did it. Again, my note right here for Garrett Wilson is Garrett Wilson has elevated himself to wide receiver 1 for this team in 2 weeks. He may end up as the best Jets drafted wide receiver in the modern era. He literally, he elevated himself. Like he proved that he should be wide receiver 1 on this team, and he did it in 2 weeks, where we're not seeing that, in my opinion, from Bryce Hall yet. That's why I said in my notes for Bryce Hall, Bryce is an elite running back waiting to explode. And he will explode. So watch out. Going back to Sergeant Mike's comment, a superstar running back is an incredibly dominant force. Absolutely. Even in today's game. So I was gung-ho for Bryce. By the way, I went to college at University of Buffalo when OJ was there. He was unstoppable. Got to see all his games. An elite, I think you said it perfectly. A superstar running back is an incredibly dominating force in this football league, because you have to respect it. You do. You just have to respect an elite running back. Look at what Joe Mixon, who isn't even an elite running back, he's a superstar running back, right? Look at what he does for that passing game in Cincinnati. We all know that they're passing the ball, but still, linebackers and safeties have to take a beat, because you have to respect Joe Mixon's running ability. You have to. And I think we're getting really, really close to what Cincinnati is doing, because we have a really lethal 1-2-3 punch in the wide receiver room. And we have a very lethal 1-2 punch in the running back room. So if we can get teams to respect our running backs a little bit more, our wide receivers will get open more, and we'll get more explosive plays downfield. And now that we have Zach Wilson back with his arm, absolutely going to happen. Sergeant Mike, so you've got full power and no trees in the driveway. Dude, yeah. In Central Florida, you rarely ever see any kind of like massive damage. Yeah, trees come down, maybe there's a sinkhole, but the biggest problem that you see in Central Florida with hurricanes is not necessarily like trees getting pulled down or hitting your car or falling on your houses or things like that. It's more flooding, because the wind has died down, because it hits the coast, and it hits the coast hard. That's why if you look at like Fort Myers and places like that in Florida, they got absolutely annihilated. But in Central Florida, the real thing that you have to worry about is water, like the sheer amount of water falling down. So like your roof and like leaks and things like that. Like we actually had a couple of leaks going into this hurricane, and we have the insurance guy coming in this week. But it's just like power lines and stuff like that. So we did lose power for about a day and a half, but we got it back, and we've been chugging along ever since. I left off on Elijah Moore, but I talked about him a little bit. But Michael Carter, who then gets taken way later in the draft, right? Pick 107. We skip the entire third round thinking that Michael Carter is not going to be there. And Michael Carter is there in the fourth round, and we take Michael Carter. Michael Carter is a legit running back in this league. And while he might not be a number 1 running back, I believe he absolutely is. On most teams, he's probably a number 1 running back. When you look at the fact how versatile he is, I love this stat about Michael Carter, which is Michael Carter, in his 28 carries that he has this year, he has 9 forced missed tackles. He just doesn't go down. Michael Carter is so hard to bring down, and that's an elite trait. Like, there are good running backs who go down after first contact, but an elite trait in running backs is being able to take your first contact and then stay on your feet. And while maybe he doesn't have that home run speed, which I think is my biggest My biggest knock on Michael Carter is he's almost like a yard or two slow when it comes to certain runs. When you're talking about his elusiveness, his contribution, he is averaging 4.4 yards per carry on 28 carries. That is absolutely great. We need to be running the ball more with this team, with the running backs that we have. And I really, really like this pick because being able to, and we hear this all the time, you can get solid running backs in the rounds 4, 5, 6, and that's absolutely true. But you don't get running backs in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round with elite traits unless you can find those diamonds in the rough. And Michael Carter has absolutely done that and showed us some elite traits, even though he might not necessarily be an elite running back yet. Next pick obviously is Jamien Sherwood. I'm disappointed that we haven't seen more Jamien Sherwood on this team, if I'm being honest. Last year, we saw him starting the year. Now, we had an anemic linebacker room last year, so we didn't see much from the linebacker room, like in its totality. But that being said, I think we saw enough from Jamien Sherwood last year where I feel pretty confident, honestly, in his ability to step up and play a linebacker for this team at a high level. I would really like to see more of him, but the good thing is that we've seen him start on this team, and he has starting experience. And for being a 5th round pick, that's very, very important. You know, having your 5th rounders have starting experience, and when they started, showed that the game wasn't too big for them, is a big deal. So I love to see that. We took Michael Carter the second in the 5th round, like 8 picks later. And Michael Carter II has showed us that he is a really, really high-level slot cornerback in this league. Great in the run defense, which is absolutely great. Love to see it. Love to see what he's doing. And I just love what Michael Carter II is providing for us as a 5th-round pick as a slot corner. Because you know that we don't need a slot corner. You know that our cornerback room is fine now, and that's not a problem at all 3 spots, in both outsides and in the slot. So you love to see that from Michael Carter II. Michael Carter, the running back, is like Curtis Martin. Great hard-nosed players. Curtis maybe fumbled twice in his life, but after 20 yards, they get tackled by the pursuit. Absolutely. Michael Carter, I say this all the time. Michael Carter is he's your 1 through 3 batters in baseball, right? Like, the first guy up, second guy up, and third guy up aren't necessarily your home run hitters, right? Like, that's not what they do. Their job is to get on base, and that's what Michael Carter does super effectively. He gets on base, and by what I mean by that is, like, he gets first downs. Whereas in Bryce Hall is your home run hitter. He's batting 4th, batting cleanup, right? Because if you're 1, 2, 3 guys, if Michael Carter can get you your first downs and crucial points, you know that if and when you bring Bryce Hall in, he's going to be able to take advantage of the fact that Michael Carter just ran for 15 yards and give you that home run play because he has that home run ability. And so the way that I like to describe it is Michael Carter is explosive, but he's not fast, right? Because he can explode through a hole, and he's quick. He just doesn't have sustained elite speed or a sustained home run hitting speed. And that's where, you know, when he tries to hit for the home run, he maybe hits the warning track and gets caught after 20, 25 yards because of that. But that doesn't mean that he's a bad running back, right? Like, I'm not saying that that's what you're saying. That's not what I'm trying to say, Sergeant Mike. It's just like, you know, that's not a bad thing. Not everybody has to be a home run hitter. Like, there's a lot of people that have made excellent careers in baseball just hitting singles and doubles their whole career, and they play for 20 years. They're there. Every team has them. He just happens to do it at a high level. We talked about MC2. We're going to just pass up on them. Jason Pinnock. It's really sad to see Jason Pinnock not here on this team and with the Giants, even though he's played only 1 snap all year. Why did the Giants claim him? Makes me sad to see him not on this team because he had lots of potential. Loved Jason Pinnock. We took him as our last pick in the 5th round. And then in the 6th round, we took Hamza Nasruddin. There's not much I can say about Hamza. He's got a lot of really, really good tools coming out of college, but the problem is he even had this problem in college was he can't stay healthy, man. He just can't seem to stay on the field. He's a great locker room presence. You keep hearing that from when his time at Florida State. But he just hasn't been well. Just hasn't been like well in the sense of like health-wise, not like play-wise. Let's move on to the last player that I'm going to talk about in this draft, and that's Brandon Eckles. Getting Brandon Eckles in the 6th round out of Kentucky is absolutely spectacular. Brandon Eckles was arguably our best cornerback last year. And I know that's a little blasphemous to say, but I was never the biggest Bryce Hall fan. That's not a secret. I don't think it's a secret. I don't try to make it seem like it's a secret. I was never the biggest Bryce Hall, the cornerback fan. And that's just because Brandon Eckles, to me, has shown us more like ability overall than Bryce did. And Bryce had one more year of NFL play than him because he was drafted in 2020. And Brandon Eckles, in his limited play, he's only played, I think, like 8 snaps this year, has been really, really good. And like the thing that I wrote about Eckles is that Eckles is a great cornerback that has starting experience, starting NFL experience, because he started all of last year. And right now he's our backup. Not just he's our backup, he is a high-level backup. And I feel really confident that no matter what happens, and I'm going to knock on all the wood, but if Sauce gets hurt or if DJ Reed gets hurt, we are taking a step back in talent level because DJ and Sauce are playing at an elite level. But we're not going from really high-level play. We're going from really high-level play to really low-level play, like how I would feel if we put Bryce Hall in, unfortunately. So really love that from Brandon Eckles. And then the last player, obviously, that we drafted in that class is Jonathan Marshall. There's nothing really to talk about with Jonathan Marshall. He's only been activated, I think, for like 4 games. He almost never got any snaps. He hasn't really shown us anything. Give me a sec, guys. It's just, I don't know. I have hopes. I had high hopes for Jonathan Marshall to maybe be something. He just hasn't shown us that yet. And that's unfortunate because I liked Jonathan Marshall. But let's move on to this year's draft. Let's talk about year 1, guys. Because real quick, let me mention this regarding our year 2 guys. Of that whole draft class, where we took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players in that draft. Of those 10 players, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those guys are starters on this team, and 7 of those 5 of those guys are starters on this team, and 7 of the 10 players that were drafted last year have starting experience and are with Sherwood and Eckles are still on this team and are playing at a high enough level for this team to still be contributors even in their new backup roles. And like for Sherwood and Eckles, they're just unfortunate victims of circumstance. You couldn't not take Quan Alexander with that linebacker room and what happened there. And how do you pass up on signing DJ Reed at the contract you signed him at? And how do you pass up on a guy like Sauce Gardner? You just can't. So Sherwood and Eckles are just victims of circumstance and the draft position, but that's the situation. Give me 1 second. Before we hop into that, Sergeant Mike, keeping the show alive and going with another comment. Pittsburgh's schedule is a murder after this week. After we beat them, they're looking at 1-7 after the 8th week. Dude, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I've been picking their brain a lot, and I mean a lot this year. And they were looking at their schedule, and they were like, dude, our last chance at a win until like way late into the season is you guys. And you guys aren't that easy of a win because they play us and then they travel to Buffalo. Then they host the Bucks. Then they host the Dolphins. Then they travel to Philly. Then they get to rest. Then they have to play New Orleans. Then they have to play Cincy. And here's where the games start becoming winnable again. Indianapolis, Atlanta. Then you go right back to a murderer's row, Baltimore. Come back, Carolina, Vegas, super beatable, and then Cleveland. Dude, it's a murderer's row. He was looking at it, he's like, I don't know where we're going to see 9 wins because they need 9 wins to keep their 500 record going. He's like, I don't look at the schedule, and I don't know where we're going to get 9 wins, let alone 5 wins. It's crazy, man. Pittsburgh got done dirty by the schedule makers this year in the sense of like just their position and everything like that. But it's also disappointing because like Mike Tomlin's record is going to go. It's unfortunate. Give me 1 second getting a baby update from the wife. Cool. Sergeant Mike keeping the chat going. By the way, I think Quinnen calling out the coaches was a good thing. Now the D and the D coaches will be on the same page. Watch Pittsburgh versus the Patriots last week. That was inept versus incompetent. If I don't know if you've watched my video, Sergeant Mike, about because I don't want to hop super into the comments and the things that I spoke in there, but I think I made some good points in my Robert Saleh will outduel Mike Tomlin video that uploaded earlier today. A little plug for that. Go watch that. Click the button below in the channel button to, one, if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button, but to go see that video. But I talked about how I think for the first time in Mike Tomlin's career, he's created a rift in the locker room unnecessarily. And you can see that. And the philosophy that Mike Tomlin has kind of used to build up his team in the sense of where production comes from is also going to come back to bite him in the butt. But that being said, that's it. I'm not talking about it anymore. Not going to do it. If you want to learn more about my opinions there, go watch that video. It's like 6 minutes long, guys. It's that quick, but watch it later. Not now. Just save it. Open it up in a new tab or save for later or whatever. But stay here. Watch the live stream. We'll be ending soon. Maybe 20. We're going to do 20 more minutes. We might end the show at midnight so that we don't go too late because we got a game tomorrow. We got to go watch. But let's talk rookies. Let's talk. Oh, wait, no. You left another comment, but it's not showing up for me. Oh, no, you mentioned it. I just mentioned it. I agree with you. Quinnen Williams calling out the coaching staff as well as DJ Reed calling out the coaching staff. Those are our leaders on defense, and they need to call these coaches out publicly. Now, the biggest thing that I have as my complaint for a lot of Jets fans and what's going on is that we don't know what's happening behind closed door. Everybody talks about accountability, but how many head coaches are literally throwing players under the bus in front of the media? It doesn't happen unless players are beefing, right? Like Mike Tomlin did that with Antonio Brown. We don't want hostages. We want volunteers. And that wasn't a bad take. Antonio Brown was trying to force his way, Le'Veon Bell was trying to force his way off of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's not a bad comment. A coach's job is to always defend his players. You always defend your players. It's always your fault and never the player's fault when it comes to the public eye and when people are asking questions. But behind closed doors, we're not in these meetings rooms. We don't know if these players are being held accountable, not being held accountable. We just don't know. And the assumption that these players aren't being held accountable for what they're doing just because they're starting or not starting, we're not at every practice. I think the best example of this, and I'm using this as an example because this is something that I fall victim to, and I've been doing it for 3 weeks, is Lamarcus Joyner. I am not going to try to defend Lamarcus Joyner, so let me start by saying that. I think Lamarcus Joyner is awful and absolutely needs to be benched. According to PFF, of 74 graded safeties, he is the worst. He is graded 74th. So he has been playing absolutely horrible, but we don't know what's happening behind closed doors. We don't know if he's being held accountable, if he's staying late to watch extra tape with the coaches. We don't know what's happening there. We also don't know the circumstance of why he's performing well. Is it his inability to play the game at a high level, which is what I actually think it is? Or, and Buffalo Jet fan made a great point of this in our live stream that we did last night, is it the fact that there's too much chatting going on before plays, that Lamarcus Joyner maybe is 2, 3, 4 yards out of position because he's trying to talk up right before a play with DJ Reed, with Sauce Gardner, with the linebackers? Do we have a communication problem going on when it comes to play calling, where we're spending too much time before plays chatting it up instead of getting ready and diagnosing what this offense is about to do? Unfortunately, because we don't have access to what these players are saying and they're not all mic'd up and we don't hear the communication that's going on, we'll never know. That's a reality and a fact of it. We will never know what's causing the issues. But that being said, hold Lamarcus Joyner accountable, hold these linebackers accountable. We got to see it. Sorry, baby news. Sorry, guys. Wanted to say hi to my boy Cameron Trammell. Always watching the videos, leaving comments. I really appreciate you, Cameron, for stopping by. Hello, good sir, and welcome. Sergeant Mike, I also worked a few years in Pittsburgh for companies like Westinghouse and had to take crap from them when we lost the AFC title game. They said Jets stood for just end their season. Damn, just ended their season. Hey, you know what? Screw Pittsburgh's fans. Coming from Pittsburgh's fans, like, it's not hard to be we can talk smack too. We can be like, Mike Tomlin isn't a good head coach. It's not hard to be a good head coach when you have, a Hall of Fame quarterback and blah, blah, blah. And when Bill Cowher leaves you an elite defense and one of the best offensive lines, blah, blah, blah. And you've had the same GM for 10 years. Look, there's a lot. I'm not saying that I necessarily believe this take, but the more I keep hearing Pittsburgh fans talk about it, because the more as this season goes on, Pittsburgh fans have been spoiled with winning for like the last 10 to 15 years, and they don't know what losing is. Like, they're not a good team. They're going to lose for a long time until they figure it out at quarterback, because I don't believe Kenny Pickett is the guy. That being said, they all think that we're going to figure out what Mike Tomlin is as a head coach this year, because this is the first time where he's really, really going to face adversity, because this is the first time this team doesn't have Big Ben, and he doesn't, and all of the decisions are falling on Mike Tomlin. This is a new GM. This is a new offensive coordinator. There's a lot of things going on, but we have to see what's going to happen. We don't know, right? With Mike Tomlin, I still believe in the guy, and I think that he's a really good head coach, but we're going to see. James Luongo, thank you for stopping by. If you haven't already, hit the sub button and the like button. Really appreciate you leaving a comment. James says, if the Jets go to Pittsburgh, and play competitive football, I would be satisfied. If they come out vanilla, can't run the ball, and can't defend, the answer will be same old Jets. But here's the thing, right? In weeks 1, 2, and 3, we've effectively defended the ball. If you look at every measurable statistic outside of 3 statistics, 3. If you look at every measurable defensive statistic, the Jets are league average. If you look at stopping the run, we're super effective. But the 3 things that we're like really bad with this year is third down conversions. We cannot stop teams on third down. And part of that, I think, comes with the linebackers and the safeties playing absolutely horrible. A lot of the answers are going to come. Linebackers and safeties aren't playing that well. So that's number 1. We cannot seem to get off of the field on third downs, like stop the play on third downs. We are ranked 31st when it comes to stopping third downs. Fun fact, the 32nd ranked team at stopping third downs, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have an even worse third down stop rate or allowed conversion percentage than the Jets. We're allowing 6.7 third downs per game right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers, 7.7 third downs per game. Now, here's the benefit for the New York Jets is that the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is one of the worst in the leagues at converting on third downs. I think they're like 32nd when it comes to converting third downs on offense. So we should see an improvement there. But a lot of that is going to be dependent on the linebackers. And we have no idea, truthfully and honestly there. So that's number 1. Number 2, the statistic that we are bottom third of the league is points allowed. I think we're ranked 22nd right now in points allowed in the NFL. Now, again, that comes down to realistically really, really poor safety play. Because if we look across all 3 games that we played, outside of the Cincinnati game, the Cleveland game, we have been keeping teams right at about where we should in the sense of like how well our defense is playing, right? 24, 27 points isn't that crazy when you look at how many points that they're scoring. Holding the Baltimore Ravens to 24 points, that's pretty good for a defense. The problem was we only scored 9 points on offense. And the other real thing that's affecting that number is the miscommunication and the bad plays that we're getting from our safeties. Because we've seen now 2 touchdowns given up because the safeties are out of position and there are wide receivers running absolutely free, like free. They're not being covered, nothing. And then we have 2 touchdowns that are directly led by safeties' inabilities to wrap up and tackle, with Jordan Whitehead running at a guy and just hitting him with his shoulder and dropping the ball. So there are at least 4 touchdowns this year given up by bad linebacker and safety play that, like, if they were just average, and it was like miscommunications or just absolutely horrible plays. The Jamar Chase touchdown and the Rashad Bateman touchdown are just, why are they running absolutely wide open, absolutely free? Why are we letting Rashad Bateman get a 55-yard touchdown? Like, Lamarcus Joyner, do your job. Cover that guy. Same thing goes with the Jamar Chase thing. Like, Jordan Whitehead, that's your responsibility. Like, why are you not hovering Jamar Chase? Why is the number 1 wide receiver on the opposing team running free? Absolutely abysmal. And then you look at Bryce Hall. How does Duvernay get that touchdown? He has 0.1 yards of separation, my guy. You can't get your hand on the ball there. Just absolutely horrible play when it comes from linebackers and safeties in that position, because we were playing dime coverage and Bryce Hall was playing in as technically as a linebacker and not as a corner. Boom, linebackers, safeties, again, the reason why we're allowing a lot of points when you look at points allowed on that stuff. And I think that's being held as an outlier because of the Browns game. And then the last stat, which is a very, very advanced next level stat, but I think is something that actually matters, is conversion from QB pressure into sacks. We are converting pressures into sacks at an exponentially low rate. It's something like it's an outlier because we are league average, like right at league or above league average when it comes to pressure rate. We're pressuring the quarterback on about 25 to 26% of plays. That means every 4 plays we're getting and making the quarterback uncomfortable once, which is league average. League high is creating pressure at about, I think it's like 33% is how much the pressure rate comes down to when you look at that stat. But that's besides the point. On when you look at the totality of snaps and how like you're creating, how much pressure you're creating, we're converting pressure into sacks at a really, really low rate. And so when you take those 3 things into consideration, and those are the only 3 things that our defense is struggling with, at least it's an answer. Like, these are the 3 things that we need to work on, because like I said, every other measurable statistic we're doing really, really well at. We're really stopping the run really well with this team. We're not allowing teams to run effectively on us. Like, and I hate it when people bring up the Browns game because like, oh, we let the Browns rush 200 yards on us. I was like, yeah, those are an elite 1-2 pair. The Browns rush 200 yards on everybody. If the Browns play the Rams this year, how much do you want to bet that the Browns are going to rush 200 yards on the Rams? They might not win the game, but they're going to do it. That's what they do. Those guys don't go down. Those guys run for a combined 200 yards every single week, week in, week out. Nick Chubb is leading the league. Is it Nick or Bradley Chubb? It's Nick. One of the Chubbs is leading the league in like rush attempts and all of that stuff. So this defense isn't playing as the same as it was last year. We are playing much, much more effectively than we were last year. We have to give credit where credit is due at the improvement of this defense. We're just struggling in 3 things that are really, really big that are leading to points. And if we can shore up those things and keep the rest of the defense intact, watch out, because we might end the year. If the linebackers and the safeties can fix their crap, we legitimately have a chance to end the year with like a top 15 defense with this team. Because if we can convert pressures into sacks at a more league average rate so that we start sacking the quarterback more, and the linebackers and the safeties aren't causing these massive plays, massive blunders, and we can trust them more, so we can play man coverage on 3rd down so that we can we can stop the 3rd downs more effectively so that we're not giving up these big plays. If we fix those things, this defense, watch out, we can be really, really good. And then when it comes to revolving the offense, you're absolutely right. It's not that we can't run the ball. We're not running the ball. Because if you look at our running backs, they're running really, really effectively. Bryce Hall is averaging 5.3 yards per carry. That is ranked 10th amongst all NFL running backs. And then Michael Carter is rushing at 4.6 yards per carry. Again, another really, really high number. I think he's 32nd amongst all running 20. I don't remember what his rank is. I would have to look it up, but I don't want to do that right now. He is running the ball really, really well. So the problem with this offense is not that we can't run the ball, is that Mike LaFleur isn't running the ball more, and he absolutely should. But the other problem with this offense is that we're not coming out vanilla. We're coming out with really dynamic play calling on the offense. The problem is that Joe Flacco is 90 million years old. He was here before the dinosaurs. That's how old he is. His process is so slow, like truthfully so slow. He in the time it takes him to do a 3-step drop to get the ball out, Zach Wilson could have called the play, set up his whole offensive line and wide receivers by physically moving them and placing them, hiked the ball, thrown a complete pass to Garrett Wilson, called a timeout, invited everybody in the stadium to have a tea time, shaken every single person in the stadium's hand, sent them back up to their seats, and played the next play, the next drive to its entirety in the time it takes Joe Flacco to take a 3-step drop. And in this offense where everything is based on timing, when Joe Flacco is hitting the timing wrong, dude, just go watch the NFL Plus All 22 tape, and you'll see it up and down the field. Wide receivers running wide open, and Joe Flacco just isn't ready to throw the ball when you see that the wide receivers' heads are turning in to catch the ball. It's absolutely useless. So with Zach Wilson coming in, while I understand your concern, and James, and I agree with your concerns, I haven't seen this from this New York Jets team. I haven't seen vanilla and the inability to defend. And so when you add Zach Wilson to this team and you add a top 3 NFL arm and like arm strength to this team and a young kid who can read and process defenses faster and can throw the ball faster and get the ball out on time in these timings with this West Coast offense, watch out. Like this, I'm not saying that we beat Pittsburgh, right? But I'm going to tell you, and I believe that we beat Pittsburgh. I'm not going to guarantee it or anything like that because in the end, the game has to be played on the field. And Zach's going to have to knock off some rust. We don't know how game ready he is because he missed quite a bit of time, right? And it's time where he couldn't really move and do those things. So we don't know the situation when it comes to the rust part of it. But with Zach coming back, I think Sergeant Mike, I'm going to skip a couple of comments to say here. The Jets, I don't think they're playoff bound because the AFC is so freaking competitive, but the Jets are going to be a team that get eliminated from making the playoffs week 17. Like that's just what it's going to happen. That's how it's going to happen. If Zach isn't hurt again, I think realistically, that's what we're looking at with this team is a team that gets eliminated from making the playoffs week 17. And I just don't think we make the playoffs this year. Next year, we're a playoff team. I'm going to say it if Zach takes that next step. But that's my take with that. Let's go back up here. Sergeant Mike. So right away, I hit them with the Jets. With Jets, I was just eliminated the Steelers tomorrow. I can touch base with them. Should be fun. That's incredible. Yes, do that. Yes, that's great. Sergeant Mike, Salah's defense is at its best with a 2-score lead, but our offense without Zach was just 1 touchdown a game till garbage time. When our offense clicks, the D will click. Again, like I said, I think I made a lot of points backed up by statistics and what we're seeing on the tape, so it should match the eye test and what we're seeing. It's the big plays that are killing us. If Rashad Bateman doesn't get that 55-yard touchdown, it's a lot of just go look at those. And I know that this is super revisionist history, and you can't do that. The plays happened, right? So they're on there. But what if Rashad Bateman doesn't get a 55-yard touchdown? Look at the total yardage in the Ravens game if you remove that play. Ravens don't look as scary. And you remove that touchdown, the Ravens don't look as scary at that point. Another great example would be no, that's really it. If you look at this team and what they're doing, if you take away the big plays, does Jamar Chase still get the touchdown if he's being covered? Probably, because he's Jamar Chase, but it looks a lot harder, right? At least it's a more impressive touchdown. So that's that. Like I said, I said my bit. This offense is much, much better with Zach here because it's going to be the timings are going to be great. But this defense is absolutely going to be productive when it matters and in game time. The problem is the corners and the defensive line are absolutely going to have to they need help from the middle of the field. The middle of the field cannot be as wide open as it is constantly, and that's what it is right now, constantly wide open. Dark Soldier, Mariners made the playoffs after a 21-year drought. Maybe the Jets will end their playoff drought. Dude, a lot of things, again, it's not that it's impossible, right? A lot of people were let me pull up the NFL standings just to have it open. The people were talking about, when the Jets beat the Steelers, I'm just going to speak that into existence, right? When the Jets beat the Steelers this week, you're looking at a team right now, they'll be 2-2. And if the if the Ravens today, if the Ravens beat the Bills going into next week, after we beat the Steelers, we would be going against the Dolphins for the right to be the first in the division. Let that sink in, because the Bills would fall to 2-2. The Jets would go up to 2-2. The Dolphins are already 3-1 because they beat the Bills. And obviously they lost to Cincinnati, but like they're three. No, they beat Cincinnati. Lost to Cincinnati. Lost to Cincinnati. Right now they're 3-1. The Jets versus Miami becomes a game for first place in the division. If the Jets beat Miami, we go to 3-2. The Dolphins go to 3-2, and then the tiebreaker goes to the Jets because the tiebreaker would go to us because we beat Miami. So we would be in first place in the division. Now, I know that's week 5, and that's a whole bunch of shenaniganery and all of this going on, but still, that's a game for first place in the division. But again, that's a little bit too big brain. And with the AFC right now, like, the Broncos aren't playing well. The Chargers aren't playing well. I had way more hopes in the Raiders. How are the Raiders 0-3? Like, that blows my mind. I believed in the Titans and the Colts, and they're absolutely abysmal. Like, what's going on there? The Jaguars are good, apparently. Like, that's a thing. Really, really weird. But still, there's a lot of hope there. There's a lot of conversation to be had there. Let's keep moving. James Luago was saying amen, I think, to my rant. Thanks for saying and agreeing with me. Sergeant Mike, Tua, with back-to-back concussions, will unfortunately be vulnerable all year. Concussions also took out Zach's mentor, Steve Young. I personally think Steve Young was a top 3 QB. Of all time or in his era? If you could clarify that, because I'm actually curious to hear your opinion on that. Dude, my biggest fear with Tua right now is that his career's over. It's hard. Every time you get a concussion, getting another concussion becomes it becomes more easy, right? It's like when you dislocate a shoulder. If you don't, for example, I've dislocated this shoulder like 3 or 4 times. And with and I've never had it like surgically repaired. I've never gone to physical therapy. So it's a different situation, obviously, because I could get it fixed and build up the strength in my shoulder to help fix that. But if you never do that, if you never get the surgery to fix the shoulder, if you never get the surgery to fix the arm, what ultimately ends up happening, unfortunately, is it becomes easier and easier to dislocate your shoulder. And the same thing goes for concussions. And while I think it's a big step for me to say that his career might be over, it's a serious conversation that you need to have. Look how scared Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh fans were of the Penguins specifically with Sidney Crosby, because he's had chronic concussion problems and concussion fears his entire career. And in a game that's as violent as football, you really gotta get concerned, because like the hit that knocked him out against the Bills, like the Matt Milano hit, wasn't like, okay, the Cincinnati Bengals hit was huge. It was a huge hit that he took. No, he got concussed. But the Bills hit by Matt Milano wasn't that big of a hit, like in the grand scheme of things. He was pushed, fell backwards, and he banged his head on the turf. It's a bad situation, right? But he still got concussed. If he's getting concussed more easily now in a league where you're gonna get hit, you have to fear about the guy's health, man. And like, is the millions and millions of dollars that you might potentially make worth the possibility of having CTE at 40 or 50? And it's a serious conversation that he's going to have. Also, I legitimately think that he has a lawsuit that he can present against the NFL, against the NFL doctors, against the Miami Dolphins for the lost contract money that he might have made, because the NFL concussion protocol and the doctor who cleared him, they totally messed up and derailed and ended his career. And so I don't know the legalities of maybe he has a lawsuit, maybe he doesn't have a lawsuit or anything like that. But it's really, really unfortunate to look and see what happened to Tua, because like, as much as I don't like Tua, and I never thought that he was going to be a high-level NFL quarterback, just truthfully, I just don't believe in Tua on that level. It's still sad to see a guy go down like that. It's just the way that it is. Sergeant Mike keeping it going. Actually, when the Jets were 1-1, they were in a playoff spot due to tiebreakers, but way too early. Oh, yeah. But yeah, week 2, come on. Right? And then that was all time. Young had years wasted in the USFL and then years behind Montana, and was robbed of one title by bad ref call against the Cowboys. Cowboys then won the title. Yeah, You're not wrong. Like Steve Young was a super he was a modern quarterback playing in a unmodern time, right? Like what Steve Young was doing back then was crazy good. The real question that you have to have, and the real question that you've got to like ask yourself is like, is Steve Young the same quarterback that he ultimately became if he didn't spend that time in the USFL and behind Montana? You know what I mean? We'll never know. And you can believe that he would have been that. And I get that belief because Steve Young was good. But like, again, we'll never know. And like, again, he was the modern quarterback before the modern game existed. You know what I mean? Back then, everybody was a statue. Everybody was a pocket passer. And And Young wasn't, right? He had a big arm and he was mobile. And he just revolutionized the way that we play the quarterback position, really. He gave way for players like Mike Vick, who were like joysticks and human joysticks to get drafted. You know what I mean? Like in the same way that like Drew Brees is the reason that, what's his name? What's the Denver quarterback name? His last name, Russell Wilson. Jesus Christ, sorry. Drew Brees is the reason that like Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray are in this league, right? Because if Drew Brees doesn't have the success, we're looking at like, short quarterbacks don't work, and those guys maybe never get drafted. And so really interesting to see that from there. And I really, really like this take. While I'm not as gung-ho as putting Steve Young in my top 3, I appreciate what you're getting at. And I agree. I always rate mobile quarterbacks with arms and great touch over mobile quarterbacks. And you don't even need to have the great touch, in my opinion. It's nice when you have a great touch, but if you're a mobile quarterback with a great arm and you're just accurate, I'm gonna rate you way higher than a pocket passer and someone who just stands there and like those guys need great offensive lines. Great offensive lines cost money. Now, the good thing is that those pocket passers, those elite pocket passers, can make bad wide receivers look good. You can see that with Tom Brady and what he did for years. But if you have a mobile quarterback, you can spend less money overall on your offensive line and devote more talent on the outsides and different things like that to have better wide receivers and running backs and have a better team built overall instead of just one superstar quarterback who's carrying his wide receivers and his running backs. You get the exact opposite. Not really the exact opposite, but you have an elite quarterback with elite weapons on the outside and in the backfield, and so on and so forth. Dark Soldier, thanks for hanging out, my guy. After tomorrow, everyone will be happy that the Jets are 2-2 with Wilson out 3 weeks. Dude, how many of I'm pretty sure I made a video on this. How many people said that when Zach Wilson went down and Robert Saleh announced that he was going to be out for 3 weeks minimum, how many people were like, if we can end this 3-week stretch with 1 win, I'll be happy? How many people said that? And then we lost to the Ravens and then they all exploded and lost their mind. And then we lost to the Bengals and everyone wants to burn the franchise down. Dark, it's been hard just being a fan these last couple of weeks because it's just people have been unreasonable. Dude, how many people made we should fire Robert Saleh takes after 20 games? 20 games, dude! A year, 1 full year with the most hurt team in football and the youngest rostered team in football to week 3 with the most hurt left tackle position in all of football and not our starting quarterback. And we're 1-2. It's not even like we're the Raiders where we're 0-3. We're 1-2 with a miracle comeback win. Come on, guys. We got to relax. By the way, Ravens have a good chance to beat the Bills. And as a Jets fan, it's another good game to watch as both of those QBs, Josh Allen and Lamar, can kill their teams with their running style. Absolutely. With how hurt Buffalo's defense is right now, I think they're missing 5 starters. That's a big deal. It's a big, big deal. And so while I don't think that the Ravens are super elite, they're getting a lot of weapons back because I believe J.K. Dobbins is supposed to be back. Gus Edwards is supposed to be back. So they're getting their running game a little bit back. And so Lamar Jackson is going to have help. That should be a really good game to watch just because those are just two. It's a good offense versus a good defense in Buffalo's offense versus Baltimore's defense. And then it's just Lamar Jackson is a human joystick. And while he's not going to be able to throw on this defense because their corners and safeties in Buffalo are legit, even with the backup safety, their running game is lethal, and they're going to be lethal. So it's going to be a fun game to watch. I think you're absolutely right. Allen and Lamar need to learn to slide. Allen, I don't care about Lamar learning to slide. I don't think Lamar's going to get the second contract that he actually thinks he deserves. Lamar it's crazy for me to say this, but I think what's going to end up happening is the Baltimore Ravens are going to franchise tag Lamar, and then they're going to trade him away before the draft to get a first-round pick, and they're going to trade up for another quarterback. They're going to try to go get a C.J. Stroud or a Bryce Young or a Will Levis or the kid out of Florida if he decides. I think the kid out of Florida should go back, but if he decides to declare, I think we have a different quarterback under center for Baltimore next year. And that is a super, super, super hot fire take. That's why I'm hiding that take in in like an hour, 15 minutes into a live stream so that no one sees it, because I don't necessarily super believe in that, and it's not something that I'm willing to put out publicly, but it's something that I kind of sneakily think might happen. We're going to see a different quarterback under center for Baltimore next year, just because they're just going to franchise tag him, and then they're going to trade him away to another team. I don't know. Maybe. Sergeant Mike, it's been frustration raised to the power of 10 as Zach has been working on his game and learning LaFleur's system. But that turf took him out for another 3 weeks of waiting. Dude. This turf, I'm done talking about the turf. We're not going to change it. And it sucks that we're not going to change it. And unfortunately, we're going to play 8 or 9 games on that turf, and we need to just pray and hope to God that we don't lose players like Zach Wilson or anything like that to non-contact injuries because we're playing on that horrible, horrible AstroTurf. But until the NFLPA decides to really take a stand, like they did with this concussion thing, dude, it took the NFLPA less than 24 hours, but it took less than 48 hours to get the NFL to readjust their concussion protocols. If they really cared about this issue, they could force NFL teams to have grass fields by the playoffs. Literally. They could say it is the responsibility of these NFL teams to have grass fields by the end of the playoffs. Or, you know what? Next year, we're banning, we have to ban, so unless the NFLPA actually takes a stand on it, and I just don't think that they will, unfortunately, that's where we're going to be at. Ablab, thank you for stopping by. I think this is the first time I've seen you in one of my live streams. I see you everywhere else. Love your comments and what you post in other people's chats. Thank you for stopping by. I really, really appreciate it. Love your insight. Can you see Bryce in the slot? No. And here's why. I don't want him in the slot. That's it. You know who I want to see in the slot? Corey Davis. And here's why. Here's why I don't want to see Bryce Hall in the slot. One, I think Bryce is a much more effective pass catcher coming out of the backfield. I don't necessarily super trust his get off at the line. He doesn't have that same separation ability that Michael Carter has when he's split out wide. Now, I'm not saying that Bryce Hall can't be split out wide. He can, and you can do it. But I prefer Michael Carter there because Michael Carter has a little bit better of a wide receiver skill set in that front and being able to create some separation there. But Bryce is way, way, way more lethal coming out of the coming out of the backfield. When he has time to build up that speed, so that he can create the separation with his speed and his quickness versus just with his get off. And that's my thing. Where if you look at Corey Davis, and this is why I want Corey Davis in the slot, one, because I believe in Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson on the outside. Garrett Wilson has an elite release, and I was so totally wrong on him. But the average size of a slot corner is 5'9", 5'10", and Corey Davis is 6'3". That's it. Dude, it's the guy is great, And when you look at the speed that Corey Davis provides as well, same concept, same thing, right? If he's being covered by a slot corner, you throw the ball at him because he's just 5-6 inches taller than the guy. If he's covered by a linebacker, he's faster than the linebacker. By playing Corey Davis in the slot, you're immediately creating a mismatch, and those are the reasons why I don't necessarily see Bryce in the slot. But I love Bryce Hall. If you look back earlier, I said a lot of good things about Bryce Hall. Sergeant Mike, actually, Pats will probably be in their last nationwide game at 4:25 tomorrow. Looking forward to see the Pats go down after the Jets win in the early game. Let's say a couple things about the Pats. One, the Pats are absolutely abysmal. Abysmal, right? When it comes to just the leadership that's coming from Bill Belichick and this team, you can tell that the man is just getting tired of it. Not tired of football, but he's just, dude, when you're like, isn't he like 76 years old? Dude, you're old. Like, it's hard to maintain that level of, you're the GM and the coach, so not only do you need to like pretend like you're scouting NFL players, you also have to like coach an NFL team, and you're hiring new staff constantly because people think that hiring your coaches is a good idea and all of this whatnot. And like, it's easy, again, going to the Mike Tomlin thing. It kind of looks easy to be an elite NFL head coach when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, probably the GOAT when it comes at quarterback. Like, they're being run into the dirt. And the thing that sucks is that I would have loved to see this team run into the dirt with Mac Jones so that I can be vindicated on my Mac Jones assessment. But unfortunately, he got hurt, and I hope that he recovers quickly and that he can come back and play quickly so that we can just see Mac Jones be bad. So that all of the people that said that Mac Jones was the it's just Mac Jones ain't it, man. And all the people like, oh, Mac Jones went to the Pro Bowl last year because he's so good. I was like, dude, like, he threw the ball 4 times in a game. 4 times. They don't trust him at all. At all. So that's my take. Dark Soldier, I know it's been tough. I'm the optimistic fan and realistic, not quick to jump on the gun like the rest of these idiots. They embarrass me as a Jets fan. Man, sometimes it's been hard. Luckily, I got my power knocked out by a hurricane. And so I missed a lot of those videos and a lot of that stuff because it really sucked. Ablab, seen some tape of him outside. Check it out. Love what you do, bro. Go Jets. Thank you very much, Ablab. Really, really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I've seen the tape on him outside. Like I said, it's not that I think that he's bad. We absolutely can split Bryce out wide, and we should take advantage of that ability. It's just like I said, if we're looking specifically at like playing him in the slot, there are other guys that I would want to do it over him who should probably be on the field with him if we're splitting him out wide, right? Like if we're going 5 wide, we're already bringing in 3 wide receivers or 4 wide receivers and a running back, or like 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back, like if you're in 11 personnel. And in that case, like everybody's out there, so like you can see it happen. But yeah, no, I love Bryce, man. I literally put it here because when I was talking about the draft picks, Bryce is an elite running back in waiting. I don't know if it's play calling or this O-line, but watch out. When this kid explodes, he's going to explode. I love Bryce Hall, and I think he's great. And I think that, like I said, if you watch earlier in the video, we spent like 20 minutes on Bryce Hall and just his ability and his home run ability. Sergeant Mike, for those of you that listen to Bill Simmons and Cousin Sal and Peter Schrager on The Ringer, want to hear them eat a lot of crow from this point on. I don't know what this is necessarily referring to because I don't necessarily listen to this podcast, but I'm assuming they talked a lot of hype on Mac Jones and a lot of shit on Zach Wilson, or like they believed in the Pats, and you just shouldn't do that. Sergeant Mike, by the way, in terms of being a team captain, have you ever seen an NFL player cry for an hour with a sprained ankle? Mac Jones looked like a prima donna player. Prima donna players do not follow someone like that. Look, it's a high ankle sprain. I have seen those. Those suck, and I'm not going to talk to his pain or pain tolerance level, but I never thought, and I agree, I do think that he's a little bit of a prima donna. When you play at Alabama and you're very clearly on the best team in football and you have all of those talent and you have all of that stuff and you're throwing to guys that are 6 or 7 yards separated from the, it's easy to think that you're tough crap and that you're the guy, especially when you're brought into a town to replace Tom Brady. Like, what do you expect? But I can't wait for them to eat crow. Guys, I'm going to end the stream there. I'm tired. It is 12:30. We've done an hour and a half. Thank you all, and I mean all, for coming and stopping by. I really, really appreciate it. Thank all 11 of you who hit the like button and hung out and spent your time with me tonight. I really, really appreciate it. I'm sorry, we're at 12 likes. Really, really appreciate it. My goal right now is I'm trying to get up to the 1,500 watch hours. I got to get 1,500 more watch hours so that I can, start adding a lot of cool new features to the Jets channel and all that stuff. But guys, there's a lot of cool new stuff, and I'm gonna share with the 10 people that are here. There are a lot of really cool things that I have planned for this channel. A lot more content coming in, more condensed content, a wide variety of content. I really want to start taking this YouTube thing a little bit more seriously. I'm having a lot of fun doing it. I'm having a lot of fun having these conversations. And honestly, I just want to build up this channel to be a little bit bigger than where it is now. I cannot believe how quickly I've grown. I'm at 1.8 K subscribers, which is absolutely insane. But watching guys like Buffalo Jet Fan and the growth that he's having has inspired me to be able to do that. Matt O'Leary's announcement has inspired me to really, really push this and really, really do it better. And create a lot of new content. So really come to expect daily content, and not just daily content, but I'm going to really try to push to have more than one video a day. I'm looking at doing 2 videos a day, one at 10 o'clock every day, no matter what. But I also want to do another video that comes out at 2 in the afternoon every single day. Try to take advantage of the fact that I'm at home with the baby. And so you might see a lot of baby in these coming videos, and that's awesome because he's adorable. So win-win, right? More baby in the videos because he's cute, and more, hopefully, Talking Jets with Tigo content. Guys, thank you all for stopping by. Last video, do all you can to build up the overall watch hours for Tigo, just by clicking and letting his videos play at the end. Thank you very, 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 very fast. Very much. A lot of typos when I type fast. No, it makes a lot of sense. Night, Cameron. Night, everybody. Thank you for stopping by. I really, really do appreciate everyone for hanging out. I love doing these live streams. Oh, I'll do this announcement here so that you guys know and no one else will know, because I'm not going to announce it until after the game. Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock every week from now on is when I'm going to be live. I am super, super excited. Now that Green Bean is no longer on the Tuesday night spot, I'm going to take the Tuesday night spot at 10 o'clock. I'm trying to line up some guests so that we can have a good time. But be there this Tuesday at 10. Surprise stream. No one's going to know about it except you guys who came to hang out. Thank you all for coming by. I got to go use the bathroom. And last but not least, go